Welcome to Empowered Returns, a show that surfaces forward-thinking real estate advice that investors and developers need to help them invest smarter and build better.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Empowered Returns. I'm your host, PT Vineburgh from CHARLESGATE, and I am very pleased to have with me Cyrus Claffey, who's the founder of Butterfly MX, the leader in smart intercoms and a whole lot more, which we will get into today. So Cyrus, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, PT. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So just let's kick it off and kind of talk about the genesis of Butterfly MX from, how did you get going to sort of where you are now, which is, clear market leader in that space.
Sure. I mean, look, I think basically we're solving a problem that a lot of folks have. And it started with me. I used to live in New York City, and actually I live in Brooklyn today, but lived in New York City, but I worked in Manhattan, and I would be at work in Manhattan, and I would always miss my packages getting delivered to my apartment in Brooklyn. So, I was already working in PropTech. I had founded a company that was doing whole building infrastructure, low voltage consulting.
Yep.
So I kind of knew all the stakeholders, kind of the pieces of the puzzle. And, you could already stream live sports onto an iPhone. So I knew you could stream video to an iPhone. And I worked in a lot of like new development condo deals. And, we've all heard the expression look and feel.
Right.
So I was like, look, there's got to be something sexy at the front entrance of a building. Hey, how close can you get to an iPad Velcroed on the front of a building, right? And nothing's got a better look and feel than an iPad. And so it was like, that's kind of the genesis of what Butterfly MX became. And Avalon Bay was actually our first customer.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That was a great one.
Yeah.
I was already consulting.
Okay.
They were doing an urban infill deal in West Chelsea in New York.
Okay.
And they were about to spend $250,000 on a hardwired video intercom system. And I was like, hey guys, I got an idea. How about an iPad at the front of the building that makes video calls to residents, smartphones? And they were like, wow. Not only would that save us a ton of money because you eliminate all the wiring from the building to every unit,
right,
but it's going to be a much better experience. I can be here in Boston, get a delivery, and guess what? I can see that guy, I can talk to him, and I can let him in, right? So it was really, that was kind of the thing that got the ball rolling, so to speak, and we really haven't looked back since.
Cool. So I guess, obviously good foresight there, right? Because that's where everything's going and PropTech's such a huge component of, multifamily right now and differentiating buildings. Talk about the specific benefits that, Butterfly can offer, both, residents, owners, as well as managers, right? Because that's obviously one of the things that we love about it as property manager is, how much easier it can make our lives. And then obviously for residents, it's the biggest thing because you want to drive retention, you want to drive rents. So kind of talk about, how you've positioned the product in a way to benefit all these stakeholders and where those core benefits are.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and look, you've touched on a couple of them, right? Retention and I think kind of during the lease up process, right? I think first and foremost, you have a touchscreen at the front of the building, right? So there's a massive amount of curb appeal. I think today's the bulk of kind of the renters in today's world are the millennial demographic, right? And they're renting a little bit longer as well. So you have the largest demographic since the baby boom, and they're staying in place a little bit longer, especially with elevated interest rates now, right? So they all use smartphones to kind of manage their lives because there's all these tools available on this thing, right? I mean, and so you can do your banking, get your entertainment, right? And why wouldn't access be part of that? So I think that's one of the biggest things. And once you get into the building, right, as a resident, you experience all the conveniences that can come along with like an automated platform. And that's not only just the access control piece, right? But it's also things like rent payment, maintenance requests, and so forth, right? You're streamlining this so that people actually can, have more time back in their lives to do the things that they want to do, right? And when it comes to access control, just think about this. I'm having a party at the amenity space of my building, okay? I can send out a virtual key to all of my friends, right? That gets them through the front entrance of the building, right? It can get them up the elevator, and then it can get them into the amenity space. Prior to the adoption of something like Butterfly MX, what would you do? You would have to, go down and meet each one at the front entrance, or hope that you heard the buzzer. And by the way, there's no buzzer in the amenity space, right? So there's all this kind of friction, I think, which platforms like Butterfly MX address and get rid of. And then I think for property managers, the benefits are manifold, because really, when you start to think about it, what else can you kind of give time back to the property management company, right? So, the obvious one is package delivery, and we're very grateful that CHARLESGATE has not only our intercoms, but a lot of our package rooms. Why is that important? Well, because I can give the UPS, the USPS, the Amazon, the whomever, every delivery person, right, a 4-digit PIN that's unique to them, so it's auditable, right? And they can get into the front of the building, and then they can go to the package room, deposit the packages, right? That notifies every single resident that now they have their package down there, and then that guy can be on his way to the next appointment he has. So that's just like one example of how it can give time back to property management. So you don't need to be thinking about, all right, how do I manage my packages, right? Because everything that you do that kind of becomes this rote behavior that you can't automate ultimately takes time away from higher value tasks. And what are those? Property manager's job is to drive revenue at a property. How do you do that? It's about retention, right? And it's about occupancy. So any technology that give you guys more time back, that helps you with those two goals, that then drives revenue, is going to be in kind of a plus and a win for property managers. And obviously for owners, it's the same sort of thing. It trickles up in the sense that, if I have high occupancy and I have, great retention, then I'm going to be making more money for my property. My NOI will be better, and therefore my asset is worth more.
Right. So I think it's pretty remarkable that, when we work on so many different projects and so many different stages, and so many of them are kind of early on in design development, and it's just kind of like a no-brainer. Access Butterfly, right? So just kind of like Xerox was synonymous with the copier. Well, what percentage of market share do you guys have in the automated intercom space? Yeah.
So actually, I'd be happy to say, I think in Boston, it's close to 9%, which is incredible. Yeah, and I think we're all very grateful. Yeah. We wake up every day and earn it, right? We don't take anything for granted, right? Yeah. Just like a good property management company, we believe about white gloving and understanding our customers, and then kind of meeting their needs. I can say today we're in about 12,000 buildings nationally, which is kind of pinching myself, because I don't think I ever even thought that we would get to that point. But I think today, though, we also see ourselves being in 20,000, being in 30, being in 50. Right. We've become kind of a digital foundation stone, I would say. Yep. In the built world piece of PropTech, meaning where kind of software-enabled hardware kind of comes together with software to enable things like automated package delivery, to enable vendor access, right? When the air conditioning unit on the chiller goes out 3 a.m. on a Saturday, how do you get somebody from Johnson Controls or Honeywell or whomever, to get there and fix that thing without the property manager having to meet them? That's kind of the kind of thing which are excited to solve for going forward, and think that we do today.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good anecdote about how to make life easier for managers and vendors. And so 12,000 buildings, right? Where I think the misperception is, it's only new builds, right? Only new development. But obviously the vast majority of the housing stock is existing, right? So can you talk a little bit about, sort of eliminating that misperception and how easy it is to retrofit. I know that we did a building that actually is near and dear to my heart because I lived there for 15 years that, it's a 1900s vintage and, now has a butterfly, right? 16 units, not a huge building.
Yeah.
But, I went by there a couple weeks ago for something. I was like, we tried another vendor a couple years ago before we kind of met you guys, probably 4 or 5 years ago. System was a disaster and they had to just redo it. And now that we have the butterfly, everyone's happy.
Yeah.
Talk about sort of the difference in retrofits versus new builds,
Sure.
and how that adds value to an older property to sort of bring it into today's world, and then sort of what you think that means and how much opportunity there is for you guys in that space.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think you mentioned it, right? The bulk of the assets out there are actually not new dev, right? I think new dev adds 3 to 4% to the total stock every year, right? And I would say about 60% of what we do is actually retrofit product. And, I think the thing about new dev is that there's been a lot of it, right? Because there is just such a demand for new housing, right? And there's just such a sizable demographic willing to pay for Class A market rate product, okay? So that's not gonna stop. What's interesting is, I think I don't know what the exact percentage is, but I think there's a ton of 1980s, 1990s, early aughts product, right? That needs to be updated. It's just kind of we're at that redev cycle or beyond the redev cycle. And the problem is that when you're in an area here like the Back Bay or some part of Boston, or like you're down in Quincy or what have you, and you've got all these new developments going up, and then I have an asset that's dated. How do I kind of remain competitive in that market, right? Because what'll happen is, lease comes up for renewal and somebody's going to cycle out, and they're going to go to the new dev, right? So one of the great things is I think PropTech is one way, not the only way, but it's one way in which you can make the asset more competitive vis-a-vis the rest of the market. And so, like I said, Butterfly Max has tremendous curb appeal. It's the first thing that you see when you walk up to it. And a lot of people, by the way, I live in a classic brownstone in Brooklyn. You know, I just got renovated it, bringing it back to its classic state. I don't want to live in a modern thing. Otherwise, I would buy a different kind of townhouse, right?
Yeah, I think that's a big piece of the allure to these more historic neighborhoods of Boston, Back Bay, South End, Beacon Hill, where obviously all the properties are of a certain vintage now. That's 120, 150 plus years old.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I actually lived here in the Back Bay. I think I told you.
Right. Yeah, you did.
On Marlborough and Dartmouth, and I loved it. So what has to happen though is then your PropTech product needs to be easy enough to retrofit to go into, right? I think an older building without breaking the bank, right?
Yeah.
And from the very beginning, when I was working with Avalon Bay, outside of New York City, where they had the majority of their assets, they were using traditional telephone entry systems, right? And we designed Butterfly MX to be easily retrofittable on the exact same wiring bundle as a traditional telephone entry system, because we knew, look, I think that the interesting thing is, when you look at what Steve Jobs did, make it easy, make it intuitive for folks, right? And I think you can say, well, okay, it's just the software is going to be easy and intuitive and create a lot of value. I can get my friends up to the amenity space or the grill area at a building, right? Or I can get my packages in the door if I'm sitting here in Boston and I live in New York, what have you. But I think the real kind of deeper thing about that is, when you go to the Apple store, right? It's well laid out. You got a Genius Bar to help you. My dad just put in a home alarm system and he hated it. It took him 6 months to get it all figured out. I'm not going to tell you who the home alarm vendor is, but you know what he said? When I call Apple, it's easy. They solve my problem. So for us, making installation easy, right, was critical, right? Because you're going to reduce the amount of friction. And when you reduce the amount of friction, by the way, you reduce cost. And that means people will say, you know what, I want to adopt this. And the same thing kind of goes all the way through to onboarding and so forth, because you know what, you have a lot of folks who've worked in the business for 20, 30 years, right? And they're not familiar with technology. They shouldn't be necessarily, right? They're there about keeping the occupancy high, making sure people want to lease that vacant unit. So we really focus on really looking at the entire kind of value chain from, hey, you want information about the product, how can we solve the particular issues of a building, all the way through training, onboarding, and then making sure the residents have a great experience. So I guess bottom line is, we've made it very, very easy to kind of install in older product. And we think that when you do that, you give that older product a leg up to help it make it more competitive, right? And better functioning building, just as importantly, right?
Yep.
Operationally.
So where do you see kind of Butterfly going, right? Like where are the partnership opportunities for you? Where's sort of the expansion in the platform beyond just entry? I know that, you mentioned in our kind of previous conversation about, starting to get to like smart locks on unit doors and really going holistically through an entire property from, you mentioned it before, from, exterior intercom, package room, amenity space, but now getting into units. So where do you kind of see things evolving and where are the opportunities for you guys moving forward?
Yeah, so look, there's really two vectors. One is, kind of the fact that we are, horizontally, we're large. We're now in 12,000 buildings, right? So that presents an opportunity. So we now have scale, right? More scale than any other PropTech company, but also more scale than most of our customers. So how can we use that as an advantage that we can then bring to our customer base? So what's very, very exciting is we've caught the attention of a lot of the national delivery companies, right? And not just for packages, but also for food. And that's very, very exciting because I think probably, you talk to most property managers, you tell me, but delivery is one of the biggest issues. And by the way, people don't even talk about food delivery, like, that becomes a ball of spaghetti at the front of a building between like 6 and 9, right? Every day.
Yeah, totally.
But like, because we now have scale, we've attracted a lot of attention. So we're in discussions with a lot of folks. I would say, please stay tuned, check back on our website periodically. And, we are creating today what I think is the future. And just to kind of, pose a question to you, do you think in 10 or 15 years, anybody's going to be, coming in and trying to find somebody or in terms of buzzing them up, or is it going to be an automated process, right?
Oh yeah, no, it's no brainer. Obviously it's the latter. Yeah, of course.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So, we are creating that today. And that's what I mean by Butterfly MX is becoming the digital foundation stone for really the real estate industry in terms of building access. Now, when you think, so that's kind of the horizontal vector, right?
Yeah.
The vertical vector is we are now going into the building, right? Because I think, the first thing was like, hey, you're letting in the delivery guy into the front of the building. Could you figure out a place where he could put those packages that's secure? Okay, we invented a package room, okay?
Yeah.
The next thing is, people said, look, people have to come down and meet the pizza delivery guy, and when my elevator is locked in my building, the pizza guy can't get up. So we developed elevator controls, right? And so it's very much because every single person inside the building starts at the front entrance. It became kind of this natural opportunity to say, well, look, wouldn't it make sense if we develop, an access control platform for all the common areas, for the leasing office, for the telco room, anywhere that people are going to be going on a frequent basis, right? Anywhere that you as the property manager want to have control over and kind of set up buckets where people are allowed to go in. Again, because it gives you the opportunity for like time savings by setting up kind of these automated workflows.
Right.
But then like the last piece of that is obviously the apartment, right? So, for the last year or so, we've been working on integrating with a variety of different smart locks, right? And when you kind of pair all of that, or not pair all of it, when you bring it all together, right? You have the front entrance, you've got the elevators, you've got the common areas, you've got the apartments, and oh, by the way, we also have parking, for suburban, for properties that have, inside parking. And, now we have what we call our end-to-end unified access platform. So now the entire building can be controlled from the resident's mobile app, right? But I think more importantly, the property manager has one pane of glass, one dashboard on which to view all the activity, right? So, anomalies anywhere in the building can be highlighted. But by the same token, they can also set up, again, workflows and manage the whole building, right, from one system. And there's tremendous value, I think, in terms of, economies of scale in training, right, and the ability to now see everything from one dashboard that you didn't have before, right? You'd have to look at 3 different places, or you know what, somebody's coming to turn a unit. Okay, well, you got to give the painter the Butterfly MX credential from the front entrance of the building. You need to give him the unit access. That's a different platform. Maybe somebody has got to meet him, because you don't have smart locks, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
So it's very powerful. So those are that, scale and going in for the comprehensive full building solution.
Okay. What are the biggest challenges that you guys see right now?
I mean, look, I think for the industry, because, that's what I spend all my time thinking about, right? How can we solve problems? And frankly, that's kind of what I find to also be very exciting, because I'm a creative at the end of the day, right? And so I think it's like, look, even before the interest rate increases, right, people were aging out of the business, right? And so you can't hire people. And I think multifamily was seeing kind of wage inflation already, right? Because there's just not enough people, right? So it's like, pick your devil. I can't find anybody, right? And I need maintenance people, I need leasing people, or, whoever's there, they don't have the experience, right? Or the expenses are going to go up. Then the next thing is, insurance costs have been skyrocketing, right? Big time. And let's hope that they flatline. Some markets, as people are even just pulling out completely, right?
Yep.
And then now you've got the interest rate increases of the past year. Okay. So I think when you bring all of that together, there's been a lot of pressure on NOI. So I think our job is how can we help owners, property managers, right? Offset some of those expenses. And I think that's where you start to get into areas where, look, whether you have the front entrance intercom in the package room, or just the intercom, or the whole building solution, right? There's a variety of different kind of things that we can provide and train the property managers on the ground with how to operate the building more efficiently. And we touched on this a little bit in our prep call, but centralization is a huge issue, right?
Yes, for sure.
But centralization cannot be enabled, right, without tools.
Yep.
And those are technology tools, right? But when you start to enable those, then you can execute on a centralization strategy, right? So I think that's kind of where we are pointed towards directionally.
Okay. What's one thing about your kind of expertise and opinions on everything that maybe most people wouldn't agree with?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so this will sound a little silly, but intercoms can be sexy.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I mean, depends on your definition of sexy, but I like a nice butterfly.
Yeah,
nice butterflies can be absolutely sexy.
Exactly.
Certainly beats that old silver intercom with just those buttons.
That's right.
Push
that doesn't
buttons.
work.
That's right.
Usually,
Yeah.
So maybe you'll move back into your old place now that it has a butterfly.
I mean, maybe we'll see. So let's talk a little bit about. I know that it's something that you're very, very intricately involved in. Let's talk about AI, and let's talk about the impact of AI on PropTech and what you guys do specifically, and how you think that's going to transform kind of operations.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think AI has a ton of potential.
Yeah.
Basically, we are already using it in some ways in terms of providing better support and understanding the market, I think, a little bit better.
Okay.
And we are undergoing kind of a process, like I think a lot of companies are, in terms of incorporating it throughout the whole kind of company stack, so to speak, right? And what I would say is, again, stay tuned for some kind of cool announcements.
A lot of teasing. You're doing a lot of teasing.
Well, listen,
come to the website. Stay tuned. I like it. That's
exactly.
Fine.
Listen, want to keep you guys coming back for more.
That's right. That's right.
It's a drip campaign, so to speak. So, so far so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what specifically? I know you're involved in AI a little bit, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, and that's, so because, I'm a company founder, a lot of folks reach out to me and, to seek advice and guidance. And I'm very happy to kind of give back in that kind of way. Because I think you learn, just the same way, you have, right?
Yeah, totally.
You want to kind of share the wealth of experience that you've had.
Yep.
Because that's kind of what keeps the engine of America going, right? New businesses and successful businesses. And so, had a bunch of like very young programmers, ex-Google, ex-Facebook, ex-AI company, people certainly much smarter than me. Luckily, I've got market knowledge and PropTech knowledge, but they're looking to kind of revolutionize the way that the whole design development process happens using OpenAI to basically, so you can either type or talk about like, hey, I want to design a living room with like, wood floors, stone countertops, whatever. Take your pick of the verbal specs, and it will literally spit out 6 different variations, right? In like, 30 seconds.
Like renderings.
Yeah. So renderings.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Okay.
And then though, you can say, I don't like that countertop, or add a skylight, or, move the windows here and there. I mean, it is so incredible. I've shared it with folks on the development side that I know in the business, and they are blown away. Right. And so I think one of the next steps is, okay, take those renderings and turn them into, 3D floor plans, right? And turn them into CDs, right? And oh, by the way, let's go the opposite direction. Let's sit down with the developer. Okay, here's kind of my unit mix layout, right? Now decorate these things. I mean, it is so interesting. So really cool to just see this thing works. And, like I said, I just got renovated my townhouse. I kind of wish I'd had it then, but
right.
I'm so intimately familiar in kind of the design process and the time it takes. And, I used to work, again, in my prior company, sat down in a lot of construction meetings. As you know, It's very time consuming on the new dev side.
It is.
So if you're looking for a way kind of to solve the housing crisis, one way is if you can take that, 12 to 18 month kind of design process, right? And shrink it down, because a developer can sit there with the architect or can just sit there on their own. How about this? How about that? Right? Or the marketing person, right? How about this? How about that? You can speed up the whole process. Then, oh, by the way, then you hit the enter button and it turns into construction docs that you can put onto the street to bid. Wow. I mean, like that's a way to really kind of speed up, Now,
no, that's game changing.
Right.
For sure.
Exactly. So,
So how do you stay up to date on all this stuff? News, trends, what's your kind of secret sauce for staying at
I think it's
the head of the pack?
Talking to people like you, PT.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, I've gotten to know a ton of people in the business, often starting out as customers and clients, you just kind of develop a relationship and understanding of like what's going on in the market. I think it's very, very important to do that because, not only, from a kind of, hey, how are we going to do at the macro level, but it's also about really just understanding kind of the trends in the market, right? Is the bid-ask spread on existing properties is going up? Is it coming down? What does that mean about, what's going to happen in the market in the next 6 months, right? What's going on with interest rates today? Like having a deeper understanding of that helps you kind of plot things out. And it also, I think, really importantly informs as we, how we grow as a company, right? Because we have to understand, look, at the end of the day, right, real estate is about, having $100 million in capital. Part of it, you borrow from a bank. Part of it, you're, raising from institutions, or you're, raising it on Wall Street, right? And you're deploying that capital, right? And it's levered, it's levered capital, right? So, but you need a 6 or 7% all in, IRR on some deals, right? or ROI. I'm sorry, not an IRR. That's pretty low.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah,
find some guys that'll take that. Send them our way.
Yeah, exactly. Unlevered. How's that?
All right, fair enough.
So, but that's the goal, right? In institutional real estate, and that's what we're all part of.
Right.
So, like, how do we play our role in terms of helping kind of achieve that goal? And I think that's been really driving all of our product kind of development. And then, like, look, like everybody else, I'm reading the trades. Can't get enough of that. I love the macro stuff. I love some of the inside baseball stuff, as well. Who's up, who's coming up, who's coming down, and why. And again, shout out to Jay Parsons, John Seabury, and Peter Lindman, who's obviously just an economist, more of a real estate finance economist. But I think understanding kind of what's going on at a deeper economic level also helps inform you as a partner, really, because that's what we are. We're a partner to all of our customers.
Yeah, I know, and we've really enjoyed that as we've worked with you. And that's our approach, right? We look at every relationship with our clients as a partnership, right? You have to, and it's I think if you don't do that, then you're just setting yourself up for bad relationships.
I think that's modern business.
Yeah, totally.
I think it's like we all have customers, right? We all have vendors, right? And so it's about really understanding that and working together, right? Because you really can have a win-win, right? If you take the right approach to things.
Yeah. So why don't we wind this down? Let's talk a little bit about the crazy but fun facts about yourself you can share with the audience.
Sure. I got two. First is during college, worked at the Ren Fair.
Oh, wow. Okay.
As you can imagine, it was a lot of fun for a college student. I worked for somebody who sold goblets.
Okay.
And part of their shtick or marketing was every time you bought a goblet from them, you would get filled up with free beer anytime you came back to the stall. And so I quickly found out that you didn't need to eat lunch if you could drink beer all day. Lots of carbs. So that was great. Beer and drumsticks, basically.
Yeah, free beer in college is a good mix.
Yeah, it was a great mix. So that was a ton of fun. And then, I'm a huge Star Wars geek.
Okay.
Yes. And so years ago, this has a tech tangent. Years ago, I bought a rather large R2-D2 off of eBay, right? In part because it was like an actual robot. It worked with voice commands.
Okay.
So not quite good as OpenAI or ChatGPT, but still you could say R2 do this or R2 do that, and it was really, really fun and cool to see that happen. I still have it. And so those are, things I'm definitely into, sci-fi and fantasy and kind of any strategy, military kind of themed, action adventure stuff. So.
All right, cool. Well, that's a good segue to my next question.
Yeah.
Books, movies, or TV? What's your kind of go-to or all the above? And any good suggestions across the board on those?
Listen, I'm just enjoying, I think, season 4 of Jack Ryan. It's the last Jack Ryan thing on Amazon. Really, really like that. I'm also reading a book about kind of the total history of Central Asia. I'm just very interested in like the Silk Road and kind of East-West trade. And, because I know a lot about European history already, I know American history quite well. Just kind of interested in how, the East and the West connected, like way back when, and learning more about China, right? Which I think is the world's number 2 economy, and kind of, how do the U.S. and China coexist peacefully in the future? So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's kind of wrapping up here. Anything else you want to add or anything we didn't cover? Or?
No, listen, it was a great opportunity to speak with you. I appreciate that, and kind of speak to the listeners. We're very, very excited. I think I used to tell this joke, which is I've been in PropTech for something like, 18 years. The last 5 have been fun, because I think finally it's gotten to a point where you can really understand the value it will add to a property. I think, one anecdote is during COVID, all these leasing offices were shut down, right? And so if you didn't have PropTech, you were kind of, SOL, right? And I think the companies that had adopted some form of PropTech, right? And in our case, it was, remote access to the front of the building via Butterfly MX, right? They were much more able to kind of navigate those waters, get new prospects into the building, right? Manage the building remotely, right? And I think it opened up a lot of people's eyes as to the potential because, look, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? The question is, what are you leaving on the table by not implementing PropTech? And I think what we find is once you start to adopt something like Butterfly MX, your eyes are so opened into, wow, I wish I'd done this before because the value add I see in how my building is operated or how much my residents like it is so tremendous that it's like, gosh, what had I been waiting for? Yeah. So, that's really I'd like to leave your listeners with that message. So.
All right, cool. Well, again, appreciate having you and sharing your insight with us. And absolutely remarkable what you guys have been able to accomplish in a pretty short time. And we're really grateful to be partnered with you on a lot of buildings and see all over the place and wish you continued success as you guys grow Butterfly MX. So thank you to Cyrus Claffey, founder of Butterfly MX. And we will catch you next time on a future episode of Empowered Returns.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Empowered Returns. If you're a forward-thinking real estate investor or developer looking for actionable advice that will help you generate market-beating returns, make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast fix. I'm Mike DeMello with CHARLESGATE, and I'd love to connect on LinkedIn and further the conversation for any specific questions you may have. Thank you for listening.